Okay, we actually went on the road for this video because I wanted to talk about the White House card as soon as it was announced. I did a video a couple weeks ago about how the UFC was in a no-win situation with the White House card. You can check it out up there. It'll be in front of the Conor McGregor painting. That is not my painting because I'm at my buddy's place. UFC Freedom 250. What a tool bag name for a card. Gets announced, and I think I correctly predicted that the main event was going to be featuring an American in Justin Gaethje versus Ilia Topuria. That's probably not going to go well for the Trump administration. I'd imagine they're not going to like watching Ilia Topuria do Ilia Topuria things to Justin Gaethje. I love Justin Gaethje, by the way. This is nothing against Justin Gaethje, but I think everybody recognizes that Ilia Topuria is, in fact, the best guy going right now, probably in the sport. The co-main event for this fight, though, is an interesting one, because you've got Alex Pereira going against Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight the interim heavyweight championship. And it's interesting because you have the Tom Aspinall thing out there. And the Tom Aspinall situation is an interesting one because nobody really knows what's going on with that. And then he just signed with Eddie Hearn, who does not have a good relationship with Dana White. So now you've got a situation where Alex Pereira is going against Cyril Gane in a fight that I don't think many people really care about. They care about watching Alex Pereira knock people out. They care about watching Alex Pereira possibly get a third division belt. That is incredible, no doubt. But when you think about the possible matchup, Alex Pereira versus Tom was much better. And more importantly, Alex Pereira versus John Jones is what was being discussed. And what this card does, no John Jones, no Conor McGregor, this just shines a light, which I'll talk about a little later, on the UFC cheaping out. So while that fight is interesting, and that sets up an Alex Pereira versus Tom when he's ready to fight, hypothetically speaking, we've seen situations before where, hey, when he's ready to fight, and then they just never fight, and the UFC releases him. I'm not in love with it. Okay, fine. And especially considering that, to me, the best heavyweight possibly in the world is Francis Ngannou, and he was just released. He's a free agent. You had the chance to bring Francis back. You had the chance to have, finally, an Alex Pereira versus Francis fight. Two guys that are known for knocking people into the shadow realm, and instead you go Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gane. Okay, fine. Sean O'Malley versus Amin Zahabi. That is a great fight. That is an incredible fight. But Sean O'Malley not getting a belt... Sean O'Malley not getting a title shot is, to me, the bigger surprise. I really thought that Sean O'Malley was going to be matched up for a title shot against Petr Yan, because the Petr Yan fight, the first time around, it went Sean's way, but I think a lot of people, myself included, think that Petr Yan won that fight. I thought the rematch really set itself up. And for the UFC to, it looks like, do right by Merab and give him a rightful rematch, which he rightfully deserved. Again, he fought 4 or 5 times in a year. He was dominant champion. I'm very surprised about that. I do like this fight, and I'm very surprised that Sean took the fight, because I don't think that the casual knows who Amin Zahabi is. But Sean O'Malley, they obviously do. And, okay, I like the fight. I'm very surprised about it. Fine. Mauricio Rufy versus Michael Chandler. Of course we get cornball Michael Chandler on this card because you have to. Again, I don't think the Trump administration is going to like what happens to the golden boy, Michael Chandler, in this one, because he is going to get knocked the fuck out. He is going to get his shit pushed in. It is going to be ugly, because that's what he does now. He goes out wrestling. I know I have the tattoo, but I'm not going to do that. No, and Mauricio Rufy is going to do fighting nerd shit, and he is going to knock him the fuck out. And, Michael Chandler will somehow, some way get a post-fight interview, even though he doesn't deserve it. It is going to be very cringy, and then he's going to hop on the mic and say, Conor McGregor, if you can, and then he's going to say something like, see you to the top, see you at the top, which, again, who's at the top, Michael? It's not you. I know it's not you. So this fight to me is it's just filler. It's a way to build up Mauricio Rufy, but it's also a way to have a known American on the card. Okay, fine. Another cringeworthy guy, Bo Nickel, taking on Philly's own Kyle Dawkins. So I hope Dawkins does, goes out there and finishes him. But Bo Nickel had been begging for this fight. He's a MAGA guy. He'd wanted to fight on the White House card. No surprise there. Bo Nickel fights once every, 8, 9, 10 months. Had an incredible showing last time out. I can't stand Bo Nickel for the fact that he doesn't fight very often. Had an incredible showing last time out. Kyle Dawkins, though, has been on the come up. Since he's come back from CFFC, he had that initial run in the UFC. He got released, went back to CFFC, went on a run there, and then he got brought back. His striking has really improved, and you've seen it, and it's been noticeable. What you have here, though, is two really good grapplers. Kyle Dawkins, his ground game is elite. He's known as the Darce King for a reason. Bo Nickel, on the other hand, his wrestling and smothering is elite. I cannot stand the guy, but his wrestling allows him to set up his shots, and his striking is there. This is a really, really good fight. This is an even fight. When I look at the card, I like it, Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. My next favorite fight is probably Sean O'Malley versus Amin Zahabi, and then it's Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. I really hope that, again, Kyle Dawkins goes out there and wins for many reasons, Philly's own, and also I can't stand Bo Nickel. But I like this matchup. I just hate the fact that Bo Nickel is getting his way. I hate the fact that Bo Nickel gets on a shitty podcast, talks a big game, and he doesn't end up fighting, or he ends up fighting in the White House card. I guess if I have to say something nice, it's the fact that no Colby Covington on this card. That's got to crush him to not be able to fight in front of his gods. But alas. And then the last fight of the card is Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia. Okay. That's about it. Okay. It's a good fight. And I think when you look at this card top down, you go, okay, yeah, it's a really, really, really good card. And that's what you expect. The problem that the UFC has with this card is the fact that they overhyped this card. They talked about how much money this card was going to cost them, as if the fans give a rat's ass. And my issue is, you talked about how much money the fight card was going to cost you. And there is no McGregor, as I talked about earlier. There is no John Jones. There is no Francis. And you know why. And it's because they didn't want to pay for those guys. They flat out did not want to pay for them. And it's a bad look when you're talking about how much money you're paying out of pocket, as if we're supposed to feel bad for Dana White. We're supposed to feel bad for Ari Emanuel and Endeavor. And you go out there and you sign some slapdick boxer that really no one's ever heard of to your Zuffa boxing promotion for $15 million. You get criticized for it, and your excuse isn't even an excuse. It's like, well, yeah, we signed him to a one-fight deal. That sounds even worse to me. So you're willing to pay boxers $15 million, but to put on what should have been the premier card since UFC 300, you weren't willing to do it. You weren't willing to cut a check. Dana White wasn't willing to swallow his pride and get Francis back to put on a legitimate, holy shit fight. I miss the days where there was the Brock Lesnar announcement of, do you see me now for UFC 200? That is gone. I was hoping we would get that with Conor McGregor. We don't. Conor McGregor wanted to fight on this card. We all know why he's not. It costs too much money. That is the issue. And the UFC is going to shove this card down your throat and tell you it's the best card ever and it's incredible and blah, 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 blah. And it's a good card. It could have been better. Just know that. It could have been so much better. And because of that, I kind of hope it fails. I kind of hope this card fails. I hope it's a dud. Because to me, that would be justice. For the MMA fan that knows that this card could be better, you just have a cheap organization. For the MMA fan that is like, you guys talked up this card so much, and you don't get those superstars, but it's a good card. All right, I'm going to go because the next fight's going to start. I will go now. Goodbye.
Yeah, the Jared McCain trade was bad. We all know that. Do I need constant reminders about why the Jared McCain trade was bad? Do I need the constant updates on Twitter every time Jared McCain goes off and subsequently the Sixers lose? I don't need that in my mental psyche. I really don't. I don't think you need that. I don't think we all need to be reminded about the fact that the Sixers made a bad trade. They traded a young, really good guard and got in return. They got a first-round pick that's going to be a mid to late first-round pick. They got 3 number 2s. Cool. When that trade went down, though, I remember I got a text from a friend who said, you think they're going to do anything else? And I said, yeah, this isn't it. There's no way the big acquisition is picks. They will make something. This is a precursor to a bigger move. And then the bigger move never came. And we sat here as Sixers fans and went, are you serious? That's it? We got a late pick in the first round for a guy, by the way, that was drafted, 16th overall. We got a late pick in the first round and 3 number 2s. Cool. Doesn't help the fact that he goes to Oklahoma City and immediately starts producing in a way that we hadn't seen him produce in Philadelphia this season. Now, last season when he, came on the scene for a very, very, very bad Sixers team, we all thought, okay, this could be the glimmer of hope. Maybe they got a diamond in the rough here. Maybe they did something that is very tough to do, which is get a very, very, very good player in the teens or later. Now, credit to Daryl Morey, okay? And I know that nobody wants to hear this, but he's been very good at drafting while in charge of the Sixers. He tabs Tyrese Maxey at pick 21. Always appreciate Mike Muscala for that 3, by the way. He gets Jared McCain at pick 16. He gets VJ Edgecombe at pick 3. There have been other players that he's drafted, whether it be, Isaiah Joe. Who else? There's a second round picks in there, but like players that maybe they didn't do much on the Sixers, but they at least became competent NBA contributors when you didn't think that was going to be the case. He's been pretty good at that. I would like to think that his eye for talent is there. The Sixers had basically one asset that they could trade to get something back, and that was Jared McCain. So the trade of Jared McCain wasn't surprising. What was surprising is the fact that they did the trade of Jared McCain not having a set trade after that. They were doing the trade for Jared McCain with the hope that they would get something. And we finally find out what that something is with Kevin O'Connor from Yahoo Sports. He did a podcast or he wrote about it, but Cliff Notes version is he says the Sixers were going after Kawhi. The Sixers were trying to get Kawhi Leonard. The deal would have been Paul George and picks for Kawhi, and that would have been like a big game hunting situation, which is par for the course for Daryl Morey. He also mentioned that he thinks that the Sixers tried to make a run at Giannis, who ended up staying in Milwaukee. Same thing, big game hunting. And that is something that I have always said about Daryl Morey, which I respect in a way, but it can cloud his judgment, is he is very much Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, who was famous for saying, fuck them picks. He didn't care. He still doesn't care. He just traded first rounder or second rounder for, the cornerback for the Chiefs. Hit thumbs down for that. I don't know ball. But he just once again said, fuck them picks. He doesn't care about draft picks. And Daryl Morey was very similar. But Daryl Morey, I felt like, would get bloodthirsty with it at times. Whether it be signing Dwight Howard, whether it be trading for Russell Westbrook in Houston, whether it be trading for Chris Paul in Houston. Never really worked out, but he would make the big swing. He would try. And he never once got attached. I thought at the time that it was ridiculous the Sixers were even entertaining a Ben Simmons for James Harden swap while James Harden was trying to get out of Houston. Turns out they were. And I guess we see why, right? I mean, where's Ben Simmons these days? So Daryl Morey has made his career with doing this, with doing the big swing and trying to get as much talent in a starting 5 as possible. And with Paul George out, and I think Paul George has played well this year, but with Paul George out for 25 games, he's in the middle of that suspension. Yeah, okay, if you can move up and get a Kawhi or get a Giannis, I mean, Giannis is going to cost way more than Kawhi because Kawhi at this point is a diminishing asset that just never really seem to stay healthy. But if you can do that, I don't blame you. The issue that I have is you trade Jared McCain and you don't have the backup plan. You were just banking on, okay, we're going to trade Jared McCain and we're going to get these picks, and no way that doesn't work. No way we don't go big game hunting and somebody swings and we do a deal. And they didn't. And you're left with Dick All. And when that trade, or when the pick ends up getting, set in stone, whether it be pick, 25, 24, 26, whatever it is, when it gets set in stone, I feel like it loses its value. Because how many people are dying for a late pick in the first round of the NBA, which is a guaranteed deal? That's why I feel like in the 20s to the last pick in the first round, that's why I feel like you see a lot of Euro stashes, because they don't know. They don't want to guarantee that contract. So they'll end up taking a European player, hoping to God that he ends up amounting to something. If he does, great. You bring him over, guaranteed contract. You kind of know what he's going to be. If he doesn't, you just never sign him, and you revoke his rights, and it doesn't even matter. Which we've seen the Phillies, we've seen the Sixers do a few times. But I just don't really need to hear the constant Jared McCain updates because I don't think it's doing Sixers fans and the community any good. I understand the frustration, and I think that Daryl Morey got a little Sam Hinkie-ish with this trade in the sense that Sam Hinkie would never take the human element into effect. He never thought about how it would affect human beings, whether it be being in trade rumors, whether it be starting lineups, or whether it be told one thing, done the next. Like didn't really seem to affect him. He didn't care, and part of that I think was the reason, or part of the reason why I think he didn't care is because he knew that the current team that Sam Hinkie was managing was not going to be a winning formula anyway. So like a lot of these players, it wasn't even going to matter. With Daryl Morey, it's a different situation. And when you trade Jared McCain and it clearly has an effect on the locker room, and guys are still kind of moping around because the fun-loving Jared McCain ain't there, you got to take that into effect. I don't expect the Sixers to really do much in the playoffs. Like, I have Sixers season tickets. I'm not buying the playoffs this year. First year, I'm not buying the playoffs because I just don't have the faith that they're going to really do much. I think that they're an interesting team in the sense of if they're healthy, which, we say every year, but if like Joel Embiid is healthy, VJ Edgecombe, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George comes back from suspension, yeah, like they could make some noise. But at the end of the day, what does it matter if that noise is nothing? If the noise doesn't result in a championship, then it's nothing. And I think for Daryl Morey, he's recognizing that, and it's causing him to make rash decisions like trading Jared McCain for picks and then not really having a set agreement in place where you can bring something back. I mean, let's be real. Like, their trade deadline was selling Eric Gordon, selling Jared McCain, bringing in Campaign, and that's it. And that's gross. It just is. But I have to have faith in Daryl Morey because he's done a pretty good job other than this. I don't think that this year was going to be the year anyway, but it'll be interesting to see if they could turn that pick into something in the offseason. Because you got to remember, they did end up in his first year in that draft. Like, they ended up trading the Al Horford contract to OKC. They ended up getting DeAnthony Melton in that deal. Like, they have been able to do some interesting things under Daryl Morey in trades. Okay, fine. Like, let's see what he can cook up. Do I have faith that he's going to be able to cook up a superstar? No, but he will try. I don't know how much that really helps you sleep at night, but he'll try at least. But at the end of the day, I'll say it for the third, fourth, fifth time. I don't need the updates on Jared McCain. I'm good. He's in Oklahoma City. He's making TikToks. I'm happy for the guy. I really am. I don't know why he kind of fell into Nick Nurse's doghouse. I don't know if it's a situation where Nick Nurse is bringing him along slowly because of the injury. I don't know if he just lost rotation minutes because Quentin Grimes was clearly the number one guy off the bench. It doesn't look great when you trade him to the reigning NBA champions and immediately he starts producing because as a fan, you go, okay, he can't get minutes with us. We're the 6th seed in the East, but he can get minutes with them. That's interesting. I get it. I do. But it ain't helping anybody. I'm kind of over it. That's just me. How do you feel out there? Let me know in the comment section. As far as the comments go, I'm probably only going to reply to channel members. So become a channel member. It would really help the channel grow, and it would help me and supporting me. That'd be cool of you. But you can also subscribe. Subscribing helps too. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. You guys know the deal. All right, I'm going to go now. Go Sixers.
Get out your sunblock, Flyers fans. I'm about to give you a scorching hot take. Danny Briere made the right move by keeping Rasmus Ristolainen. No Flyers fan wants to hear that right now because the team is obviously in a rebuild mode. And when you're in a rebuild mode, you want to see assets out the door. That's what the trade deadline is for, right? You want to see these guys that are veterans that aren't going to be a part of your core, and you want to see them flipped for prospects or picks. Completely understandable. The deadline for the Flyers was not great. I like the Bobby Brink trade because I like taking a swing at a right-handed shot defenseman who is kind of a reclamation project. Bobby Brink is, I think, what he is at this point. And the Flyers have an influx at wing, and they didn't really need him. They have guys coming up. And when you look at what they got in return, I think in that instance, the juice is worth the squeeze. The Nicolas Deslauriers trade, I thought they probably... I overvalued Nicolas Deslauriers is what I'm trying to say. I thought they would get more than a 7th-round pick for him. And I remember arguing with a buddy of mine when they initially signed Nicolas Deslauriers. He wasn't a fan of the contract. And I said to him, first of all, the guy's getting like 1.25. Whatever the contract was, it wasn't much. His problem was it was a 4-year deal. And I said, the skill set that Nicolas Deslauriers brings to your team is not going to diminish over the years. Nicolas Deslauriers is there to be a deterrent for guys running around taking cheap shots at your skilled players. Was the Flyers signing Nicolas Deslauriers a smart move at the time? Not necessarily, just because they weren't going to win and they were in that weird flux state of like they kind of convinced themselves that maybe they could contend when they couldn't. But my point was, like, look, he's not a situation of like his skill set and his main attribute is speed or, you know, hands, which diminish over time. Like, no, like he's a brawler. And I didn't think he was an asset that would diminish. He was also a guy that had commanded a 3rd-round pick in the past, although that was 4 years ago. Him going for a 7th-round pick, I was a little surprised about that, but hey, like that was the market. Ristolainen's a different story, though. And when you look at as a whole this trade deadline sucked. I mean, the biggest name was Braden Shen getting moved, and I'm talking on deadline day. There was no huge, giant move. It was Braden Shen. I mean, that was it, you know, to the Islanders. Most of the big moves were made before the deadline, being Quinn Hughes, being Artemi Panarin. You know, those swings were made weeks ago, whereas this deadline was that. And what does that tell us? That tells us that while we were told by the NHL insiders that this is a buyer's market, that it might have been a situation where teams just stared each other down, not willing to give an inch. And what it resulted in is contenders being content with their team and not paying an exorbitant amount for a certain player, and sellers being stuck. And I don't think the Flyers are stuck. That's the thing. I would understand Flyers fans' frustration about not trading Ristolainen if he were on the last year of his deal. I think the Ristolainen experiment in Philly has been an utter disaster. I thought it was the dumbest trade when they made it. I thought good guy Chuck Fletcher made a dumb move, trading a 1st-round pick for a big, hulking, bruising defenseman, and he wasn't going to be the difference maker. And the excuse of giving up a 1st-round pick was, oh, well, other teams were doing it. And, it's the age-old adage of like, well, if people are jumping off a bridge, would you do it? It was a horrible excuse for making a bad trade. But they were stuck with him. And in order to justify that bad trade, they signed him to a 5-year deal, which, again, didn't really make a lot of sense to me because he wasn't a difference maker. I didn't look at Rasmus Ristolainen as being the missing piece. Like, they have so much more that was missing from that team. But let's look at some facts here before you rip this entire video. And just ask yourself these questions. You can answer it aloud. Does Rasmus Ristolainen have 1 year left on his contract? Yes or no? Yes, he does. Okay. Is the cap going to go up next year? Yes or no? Again, yes, it will. Does Rasmus Ristolainen's 5-point whatever cap hit get easier to absorb next year with the cap going up? You don't have to be a mathematician for that one. The answer is yes, it does. Is Rasmus Ristolainen a right-handed defensive shot? Again, the answer is yes. Is finding a right-handed defenseman a difficult thing to find in the NHL? Yes, it is. Right now, are there more buyers or are there more... Well, no, are there more buyers? Like, is the crop of buying teams as big as it would be? I worded that so bad. Hit a thumbs down for that. My point of this question is there is a finite amount of teams that are buying at the deadline. Whereas if you fast forward to the draft, pretty much every team thinks they can contend. And the draft, at times, and I think this is going to be a good example, can be a better trade deadline than the actual NHL trade deadline. Because at the NHL trade deadline, let's say you have 12 teams that are buying. The NHL draft, you have 32 teams that are buying, that are wheeling and dealing. The biggest thing, and I think why Ristolainen didn't go, is what you saw at this deadline, as I said, was that teams were not willing to pay an exorbitant amount for really anything. And when you factor in what Ristolainen's price was for the Flyers, it probably was a first because of what his skill set is, of what he could bring to a playoff team. The fact that he, once again, is a right-handed shot, it probably was a first or a conditional first. If you are a team that is buying, and it is a buyer's market, and you've got the Flyers asking for a conditional first for a guy that has been injured for part of this year, you're probably not paying that price. You're probably moving elsewhere. Unfortunately for the Flyers, Rasmus Ristolainen's injury this season has hindered his value around the league for buyers. Whereas in the offseason, hey, clean bill of health, right? Like, he's good to go. So I think if this was a situation of like, hey, he's like, if this was the James Van Riemsdyk situation where they didn't move him and he's on the last year of his deal and you're sitting there going, oh my God, Chuck Fletcher literally fell asleep. Like, what the hell? You're sitting here talking about no one paid your price, but he's leaving. He will not be here. That I would understand. This isn't that. Rasmus Ristolainen's value will be there and probably bigger after the season at the draft than it is right now. When teams are simply looking, because you have to figure, if you're an NHL team, if you're buying and the Flyers call you up and you have interest in Rasmus Ristolainen, what are the negatives that you're looking at? It's probably the fact that he has been banged up this season. So what would your price be? Remember, like, you're buying, but you don't want to overpay. Are you paying for a first? Take the name out of it. Take your fanhood out of it. Are you paying a first-round pick, a conditional first-round pick, or if you have 2 seconds, a very high second-round pick? Are you paying that for a right-handed shot defenseman who has limited offensive ability and is basically known as like a big body who can throw it around? Who is that bruising defensive type? Are you paying? No, you're not. So I understand why fans are frustrated with Danny Briere at this deadline, but I think in this instance, he made the right move. I don't think this was the Flyers falling asleep. I haven't thought much of the Flyers deadlines and the trades that they've made. I think this current regime made the best of a bad situation with the Cutter Gauthier ordeal. And when you look at the Flyers losing that trade, which they did, but they were forced to, I mean, well, what else were they going to do? Cutter Gauthier is so much better than Jamie Drysdale. Yeah, I can't talk. I'm having a stroke. Cutter Gauthier is so much better than Jamie Drysdale. But with that situation, they did pretty well. Guy wasn't going to sign. You got a former top, 5 pick defense, which is always an issue for the Flyers, or has been for a while. They've been trying to find a solution at defense for a long time. So they get a former top 5 pick who, maybe needed a change of scenery, was dealing with injuries. But at the end of the day, like, if you were being objective, you went, yeah, it's probably not going to work out for the Flyers because Cutter Gauthier was a possible 40-goal guy, and he's on pace to score just that, or close to it. But when you factor in what the Flyers also did with the Trevor Zegras trade, and when you combine both of them, like, it evened out. Like, they got the better of the Trevor Zegras trade. They lost the Cutter Gauthier trade. And so I thought the current organization has done pretty decent with trades. But as a whole, in the last, let's say, decade, I haven't thought the Flyers have done a great job with who they've brought in, who they've ushered out. In this instance, though, I understand the fans' frustration, but I just need you to pump the brakes on it a little bit, because I really do think that you're going to be pleased with what Danny Briere does at the draft or at, the next trade deadline. Now, I would expect Rasmus Ristolainen to be traded at the draft. And I could see the frustration of going into next year with him, because next year isn't the year for the Flyers. And you kind of risk the same thing that happened this year. You risk Rasmus Ristolainen being injured and then his value diminishing when it comes time to actually deal him, when it is the last year of his deal, and you do have to take whatever the team is offering. That's different. And if that happens, fine. But what this also did was it shined a light on Danny Briere not blinking and not panicking, because he still is a young GM. And when you look at what he did with the Cutter Gauthier move, figuring out early on that this kid wasn't going to sign and getting ahead of it, and not kind of pulling what the Phillies did in 97 with J.D. Drew and being like, well, you sure? You sure? You sure? And eventually he's like, yeah, I'm sure, I'm not signing. They got ahead of it, and I think Danny Briere has once again shown that, like, he has a plan, but more important than that, he's got a price, and he's going to stick to it. And if you don't pay his price, he's convinced of the market he will get his price. So with the cap going up, it makes the contract even more affordable, and thus I think that they will eventually get what they want. Now, let's see, though. I mean, again, I've been wrong on the value of players over and over again. So I'm sitting here talking about they could possibly get a conditional first-round pick. It might not be in next year's draft, but it might be in 2027, 2028, whatever. But if they do end up getting that, I think Flyers fans will go, oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm happy now. And every Flyers fan that's complaining about the trade deadline will be perfectly okay with what Danny Briere did by holding on to Rasmus Ristolainen. Now, do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section. As for comments, I'm probably going to only respond to channel members. So become a channel member. You know, support your boy. All right? Help me out. It'd be cool. I'd really appreciate, please God, do it. Yeah, hit thumbs up if you like this. I already told you to smash the thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. And subscribing. Subscribing is cool. You could do that too. All right, I'm going to go take a nap. Abolish the World Baseball Classic. Get rid of it. Shoot it off into the sun. I'm not completely against, obviously, an international format to decide what country is best at the sport of baseball, but this is not it. And last night, I'm recording this on a Saturday, last night was a prime example. Why? Because I watched Team USA take on Team Brazil, which, by the way, like, had Dante Bichette Jr. I don't even know if Dante Bichette Jr. has ever been to Brazil, but this is what you get in these tournaments. It's the same thing as the Olympics. But it was, competitive for a bit there, and then Team USA just like poured it on and it won 15-5. But one thing that I noticed, as somebody that hadn't really paid attention to the World Baseball Classic before, has not really paid attention to the World Baseball Classic in previous years, has not paid attention to the rosters, and the big reason why, as I'll explain, is because of what I witnessed last night as I actually watched the game. You had guys on this team for Team USA that are not the best in the world. Michael Wacha pitched. Now, with all due respect to Michael Wacha, what the hell is he doing representing Team USA? Roman Anthony started. Roman Anthony has had 60 games in Major League Baseball. He's starting for Team USA. Ernie Clement is coming in mop-up duty. Again, with all due respect to these guys, this is not the best that Team USA has to offer. It's just not. And why is that? Why does Michael Wacha deserve a spot on this team? It's pretty simple. Because the World Baseball Classic, with the time that it takes place, March, has become kind of like the Pro Bowl with football. They just ask a bunch of guys, and it's like, do you want to come? Do you want to come? And it's not best on best. And baseball could truly learn something from what we witnessed in the Olympics with hockey. Because I think the NHL learned that we are willing as a league to take a cut of profits for 2 weeks. Because we know that if Canada does well and if Team USA does well, then it's going to bring more viewership to the sport. And that's pretty much what happened. I think for a large extent, Team USA and Team Canada playing in the gold medal, I think it did a lot for the PWHL, and I think it did a lot for the NHL as well. There's been obviously a lot of negative backlash with that, but what that did was you have the best in the world in the middle of their season representing their country. And you truly got best on best. Now, it's unfortunate that Russia wasn't involved in the Olympics this year, but I think when you looked at both Team USA and Team Canada, That's best on best. Russia would have obviously had like an absolute unit of a squad, no doubt, but you get my point. You weren't having guys pull out. You weren't having guys like Tariq Skubal saying, look, I'll give you like 40 pitches, but then I got to go back to spring training. And that's what you get when you have this tournament in March. Now, this tournament was brought back because they got rid of baseball in the Olympics, which is weird because they never had professionals in the Olympics to begin with for baseball. You know, it was basically just amateurs and minor league players, but alas, they got rid of baseball in the Olympics, and they decided we need kind of a format to decide like what the best country is. Okay, we'll bring back the World Baseball Classic, and there's really no rhyme or reason on when this takes place. Like if you look at the years that it's taken place, it comes back in 2006, then it's 2009, then it's 2013, then it's 4 years later in 2017. Oh, wait, look, then it's 6 years later in 2023, and then it's 3 years later in 2026. Like, it makes no sense of when this takes place. I think it's really cool a lot of times where you'll have, like, the plumber for Team Israel facing off against Shohei Ohtani. Like, that is cool. But when I look at the American roster and I see Michael Wacha coming out, I get annoyed because I'm simply not watching the best on best. I'm watching guys that decided, yeah, you know what, I'll put on a Team USA uniform. That would be cool. And alas. So what I'm suggesting is you get rid of the World Baseball Classic. And what Major League Baseball needs to do is when the Olympics come around in 2028, they need to participate. The owners need to take a step back. They need to take a hit for 2 weeks at the box office. They need to do what hockey did and take an Olympic break. Because I think one of the problems that you're seeing is guys are reluctant to go to the World Baseball Classic or at least give their all because March is typically the time to ramp up. And now you're asking guys to go into what many have called like a World Series or playoff atmosphere for some of these bigger games. I mean, if you're facing Team Brazil, probably not. But if you're facing one of the big, you know, Cuba, Japan, Team USA, like you're probably, you probably got a raucous crowd. But you don't get the best because the best, at least some of them, especially the pitchers, are focused on getting to spring training. You're asking these guys to go from 20% to 100 and then flip and come back for opening day. And I know it had a negative impact on Trey Turner because I'm a Phillies fan and he talked about it. He went, said like he had an amazing World Baseball Classic in 2023. And then he came to the Phillies and he was like, I had a tough time acclimating. I'm playing in this like playoff like atmosphere. Now I'm playing in, an April game on a Tuesday against the Marlins, and it had an effect. But I think the effect that you'll see the most is with pitchers, and that's the reluctance to go. So when you have some of the best pitchers in the game not participating in this, the reason is they're looking at it like this isn't worth it. I'm not warmed up. I'm not even close to warmed up. But that all changes when you're in the middle of a season. When you are in the middle of your season, everybody's warmed up, everybody's good to go. I mean, barring injury, of course. And it's like, yeah, you'll have guys frothing at the mouth to represent their country. Whereas now I think it's like gee, I'd like to, but I also have to think about my team over here and my health and is it good for me? And that's why you have guys showing up and giving 40 pitches. Some of the best in the game are like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to skip it. Now, it's fun. It's fun to watch like Team Great Britain and see Vance Worley out there and go like, oh, I forgot he was a thing. But when it comes to the actual giants of the sport, and you know who they are, like Puerto Rico's always really good, Dominican Republic, Team USA, Japan, like those teams, are they actually fielding the best of the best? And is Team USA fielding the best of the best? And I can tell you they're not. When Roman Anthony is starting, with all due respect, and I think he's going to be a really good player, is he one of the best outfielders in the sport of baseball that is from America? No. But yet he elected to go because probably they had a bunch of guys say no. So I think if you are baseball with the next collective bargaining agreement and, the lockout that we're about to see, I think one of the things that the players need to do is go, yeah, no more World Baseball Classic. We're not having this thing in March. It's dumb. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this every 4 years. It is going to be set. When the Olympics come around, we will be participating. And I think you'll see a huge influx of new baseball fans. Or at least people that went, yeah, baseball is boring, but they'll get back into it because of the fact that they're seeing best on best. You know, I mean, if you're a fan of, let's say, the Cincinnati Reds, like they're a team that competes once every like 15 years, and you haven't seen playoff baseball for a while, like this might be your only opportunity to see good baseball. Now, nothing against you, Cincinnati. Pittsburgh, another team in the NL Central. You haven't seen competitive baseball in how long? This is your chance to do it. So it sucks when I turn on the TV and I'm seeing Michael Wacha come in relief of Logan Webb. Again, nothing against Logan Webb. He's a very good pitcher. Is he one of the best pitchers from America? No. He's the best pitcher on his team, no doubt. He's very, very good. But when you look at American-born starting pitchers, he's not top 5. But he's on the team because the top 5 of, you know, the Paul Skeens of the world said, yeah, I'm all right. Like, I'm not going to give you my all. And thus we get the Michael Wachas, the Ernie Clements, the Roman Anthonys, and there's probably a couple other, like Byron Buxton starting in center field. Again, with all, like, really good player. So you get my point. What do you guys think out there? Now's this part of the video where I ask you guys to please subscribe to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this video sucked. As far as comments go, I'm probably only going to respond to channel members, so become a channel member. You know, support the kid. All right? Be cool of you. All the cool kids are doing it. No one's done it yet. You'd actually be the first. But yeah, I'm going to go now. I'm going to grab coffee. UFC 326 in the books. We have a new BMF champ. Love made-up belts. The big story, obviously, is the announcement of the much-anticipated, it's anticipated by the UFC, that's for sure, the White House card, which you can get my reaction right after it happened up here. But let's talk about the card. RoboCop gets his revenge against Bruno Ferreira. Michael Johnson had the most Michael Johnson fight of all time. And you know what? I'm going to say it. Like, I actually had a really good card. I went 5-5 on the main card, and I correctly called exactly how this Michael Johnson Drew Dober fight would go. That he comes out, that the broadcast crew, mainly it's Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, because those two get together and they become little frat boys, but they would spend the majority of the fight, as the kids say, glazing Michael Johnson. Oh my God, his hand speed. Oh, well, he hasn't lost anything at 40. And then he gets clipped, because that happens every Michael Johnson fight. He has the hand speed, he looks good, and then all of a sudden he gets knocked the fuck out. I mean, how is he still a main card guy? I was talking to my buddy that I watched the fight with. Michael Johnson must be the ultimate company guy in terms of, like, can you fight tomorrow? Because no one's dying to watch a Michael Johnson fight. He doesn't really sell any of his fights. The last fight he sold was the Justin Gaethje fight, and that was just by talking a bunch of shit that he couldn't back up. And it's not like he puts over... Like, Maxx is a good example. Maxx, when the UFC switched from the old belts to the new belts. I love the old belts. I thought they looked really good. The new belts I thought looked corny as shit. Maxx is like, I love them. They look like Power Ranger belts. The BMF belt, everybody shit on it. Maxx is like, I'll tell you what, right off the bat, I liked it. Like, the UFC could come up with the dumbest idea, and Max Holloway's out there being like, I think it's a great idea. Michael Johnson doesn't do that. He's not getting like 30 to win, 30 to show. I don't know how the hell he's still on the roster, but... yeah, most Michael Johnson shit of all time. RDR didn't look good. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting one. Raul Rosas Jr. goes out there and looked like a poor man's Charles Oliveira against Rob Font. You know, very boring fight. He's kind of becoming a younger version of Bo Nickel in the sense of, as he steps up in competition, the quick submissions aren't there, but he's still able to kind of maul his opponent for 15 minutes. Doesn't do a ton of damage, but just continues to control him and get him in positions where his opponent can't get out of it, and it ends up being a kind of boring fight. And then he hops up and he does this stupid catchphrase that I cannot stand. I mean, some of these guys, like, you know, Pereira with Chama, and then the Chihuahua thing is just like, it ain't it. But he ends up winning the fight. I do feel bad for Rob Font, because like he just couldn't get anything going. Because I mean, Raul Rosas Jr. realized, okay, well, and correctly so, by the way. It's like, yeah, Rob Font has really good defense, but I'm just going to go out there and do my thing. I'm not going to trade with this guy. RDR ends up looking better than he did in his previous fight, but still not good. Not good at all. It's not a good sign when Ciabarello is, and I know I'm butchering that name, but he's walking down RDR, hands by his side, just kind of bitch slapping him. Like, throwing that right hand, it's continuously landing. RDR's face was like he wanted no parts of it, but he also realized, I quit on the stool last time. I need to finish this one out. I am surprised that Barella didn't finish the fight. But overall, I think the UFC is probably thrilled that RDR has not gone on a run, because he's got that like Ben Askren-esque striking game where like it kind of works, but it just looks really ugly. And we all know what his actual game plan is going into a fight, which is to utilize his grappling and his ground game. I'll tell you what this does. To me, at least, it shines a light on the deficiencies in Bo Nickal's game. Because Brendan Allen beat the shit out of RDR. And then you just saw, Kai Barella just go out there or Chao Barella, or however you want to say his name, go out there and just have no issues whatsoever. RDR had a couple nice shots in there, but it was all Barella. And then obviously the main event, which is what we're here to talk about. So as I was watching the fight, I was having a conversation with my buddy, before the fight actually, about the stupidity of the BMF belt. But up until this point, we've had, for the sake of the belt, for the sanctity of the belt, we've had worthy matches that make sense for the BMF model. The BMF model basically is like, we're just going to brawl. We're going to stand here, we're going to trade. We are going to get into a war. And the first one, obviously, being, Masvidal versus Diaz. And that was one-way traffic. That was Masvidal beating the shit out of Nate Diaz. But he was doing it with his fists. People were entertained. People are entertained when it's one-way traffic with your fists. People are not entertained when it's one-way traffic just grappling. And, then you had, obviously, the Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje won. The Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier won. There was Poirier versus Gaethje. Like, there's been these iterations, but all of them have been wars, because you've got two guys that understand the assignment. They know what they're there to do. They're there to put on a striking show. So to me, that's why it didn't really make a lot of sense to put this fake title on the line when you had a guy that is prone to grapple in Charles Oliveira. It's not like Charles Oliveira won't strike, but what we saw was not a surprise. And for the broadcast crew, and mainly Rogan and John Anik, who I love John Anik, but for them not to understand why the crowd was upset. The crowd is sold on a BMF fight. And obviously a lot of people now, when you get sold on a BMF fight, are going to have these grandiose ideas of pointing to the ground and the 1 second knockout and all of that. But before that point to the ground, that was a hell of a fight. That was highly entertaining. That was a striking clinic. And when the crowd is sold that and they don't get it, justifiably so, they get mad. If this had been a number one contenders fight, and you can't do an interim fight because it's 155 and we already gave a fake interim title to Justin Gaethje, because God forbid we just say, all right, he's next in line. But if the UFC did this crazy thing where they didn't treat their fans like fucking idiots, and they simply said, hey, this is a really, really good fight, and the winner of this will fight the winner of UFC Freedom 250. What a name. I don't think anyone's complaining about it, because these are two of the premier guys. And these are two premier names that can draw. But no, we have to put the fake title on the line. And here's the problem that now coincides with Oliveira, the BMF belt, and the problem that the UFC has. Because nothing about Oliveira has ever screamed the BMF situation, which is, again, my face is bloody, I'm going to bang, I'm going to trade, like, I'm going to stand here, I'm going to go to war. And I love Charles Oliveira, and I think he's a very, very entertaining fighter, and I look forward to his fights. But when you think about that guy, with the blood mask, it is Nate Diaz. It is Dan Hooker. It is, and I hate to say this, Michael Chandler. It is Max Holloway, that first fight with Dustin, where his face is all bloodied up, and he comes out and he goes, all right, let's go. That's the lore of the belt. That is the whole thing with the BMF title. You just gave the belt to a guy that has no problem whatsoever with just grapple fucking people. And look, I'm entertained by Charles Oliveira. I wasn't necessarily entertained in that fight because it became very evident early on that this was how the fight was going to go. But, where do you go from here with the belt? They should have retired the BMF belt after the Justin Gaethje fight, because it was never going to get better after that. It just wasn't. And now you had to put a fake belt on the line where whoever they throw in there next for this fake belt, that really, I don't know anyone's banging down the door to see another BMF belt on the line, but whoever they throw in there, you have a chance to just lose what drew people to it in the first place, which was a war. Because you put this guy in there that didn't make sense for the fight. If you just want to label the fight number one contender, people are fine with what happened. When you label this fight, oh, this is the BMF situation, watch out, and you got the highlights and all, and that's what plays out, people are allowed to be pissed off. I don't know where the UFC goes with this stupid belt. I really don't. But again, the big thing was the White House lawn card. Again, UFC Freedom 250. Horrible name. Such a bad name. And again, you can get my thoughts on that. It was one-way traffic for Oliveira. He looked bigger than Maxx. He easily took him down. Maxx had no answers. I think that this was, in fact, a number one contenders fight. When Topuria goes out there and dusts Justin Gaethje, I think you'll probably see a rematch, maybe, because I don't know who else other than Islam. I don't know who else Topuria would fight. I guess Islam could come back down to 155 and change things, but overall, yeah, it was a dominating performance. I don't think anyone's arguing that point. I think the point is, it was a dominating performance, but it was not what we were promised. We were promised a war, we didn't get a war. And that's why you have to put guys in these journeyman title fights that understand the assignment. And for Charles Oliveira, the assignment, understandably so. Again, I'm not criticizing Charles Oliveira, but for him, the assignment was, I'm going to go out there and win, and I'm going to use my skill set to do so. I can trade, no doubt. But if you're Charles Oliveira, why would you do that? That's why this matchup made no sense. Why would you do that? I'm sorry, the matchup made sense. Putting the BMF title on the line made no sense. And by the way, we never need to see Puka Nacua again at a UFC fight. Good Lord, man. What a frat boy. It's like, Maxx is getting mauled and Puka Nacua is behind him all coked out, just like screaming his head off. Oh, God, that was cringeworthy. But overall, yeah, I did pretty well tonight. I hope you guys did too. I'm looking forward to the next pay-per-view, and I'm going to go now. All right, goodbye.